There was a time when model trains weren't just toys. They were a national obsession. Across America, millions of children and adults spent countless hours building miniature railroads inside their homes. Entire basements were transformed into tiny worlds filled with mountains, tunnels, stations, bridges, and perfectly detailed trains. For many families, a model train set under the Christmas tree wasn't simply a gift. It was a tradition passed down from one generation to the next. So what happened? How did one of America's most beloved hobbies slowly fade from mainstream culture? The story began during the rise of the railroad itself. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, trains symbolized progress, adventure, and opportunity. They connected distant cities and helped build modern America. It didn't take long for people to want miniature versions of these powerful machines inside their own homes. By the early 1900s, toy trains had become increasingly popular. But everything changed when companies like Lionel transformed them into something magical. Lionel advertisements promised excitement, imagination, and family memories. Department stores created enormous holiday displays featuring trains racing through miniature towns. Children would press their faces against the glass, dreaming about the day they could have their own railroad. By the 1950s and 1960s, model trains had entered their golden age. Receiving a train set on Christmas morning became a classic American experience. Fathers and sons spent weekends assembling tracks and designing layouts together. Families worked side by side, creating mountains from plaster, planting tiny trees, and building entire cities from scratch. What made the hobby so special wasn't just the trains. It was the creativity. Every layout told a story. Some enthusiasts recreated real railroads down to the smallest details. Others built imaginary worlds complete with bustling towns, working stations, and dramatic landscapes. No two layouts were exactly alike. The hobby also taught valuable skills: patience, problem-solving, planning, craftsmanship. Children learned how things worked, while adults found an escape from the pressures of everyday life. Local clubs flourished across the country. Hobby shops became gathering places where experienced builders shared techniques with newcomers. Train shows attracted thousands of visitors eager to admire elaborate layouts that had taken years to complete. For many enthusiasts, model railroading wasn't just entertainment. It became part of their identity. For decades, it seemed impossible to imagine a future where the hobby would struggle. Then the world began to change. One of the biggest reasons for the decline was cost. As technology improved, model trains became more realistic than ever before. Locomotives featured authentic sounds, working lights, digital controls, and incredible detail. But all those improvements came with a price. A hobby that had once been accessible to many families slowly became expensive. Tracks, scenery, materials, buildings, electronics, and high-quality locomotives often required hundreds or even thousands of dollars. For younger families, that level of investment became difficult to justify. Another challenge was space. The great layouts of the past often occupied basements, garages, and spare rooms. Previous generations generally had larger homes and more room for long-term projects. But modern lifestyles changed. More people began living in apartments and smaller homes where building an entire miniature railroad simply wasn't practical. Then came the biggest change of all. Entertainment evolved. Video games offered instant excitement. Computers opened new worlds. The internet provided endless content available at the touch of a button. Smartphones made entertainment portable and immediate. Model railroading demanded something very different: patience. Building a layout could take months, sometimes years. Mistakes had to be corrected. Details had to be carefully crafted by hand. For many younger people raised in an age of instant gratification, that slower process became less appealing. As longtime hobbyists grew older, clubs struggled to attract new members. Many neighborhood hobby shops that had once served as community gathering places closed their doors forever. Train shows that once filled massive halls began seeing smaller crowds. The hobby didn't disappear overnight. Instead, it slowly moved from a mainstream into a passionate niche. But despite everything, model railroading refused to die. Dedicated enthusiasts kept building. Collectors preserved vintage train sets passed down through generations. Online communities brought together fans from around the world to share layouts, techniques, and advice. Large exhibitions still attract visitors, amazed by the creativity and craftsmanship on display. Because perhaps model trains were never really about trains. They were about imagination. They were about creating something with your own hands. They were about spending time with family, teaching patience, solving problems, and bringing tiny worlds to life. The golden age of model railroading may be behind us. The days when millions of American children dreamed of finding a train set under the Christmas tree may never fully return. But the magic hasn't disappeared. It still exists in basements, garages, museums, and clubhouses across the country. And every time a miniature locomotive begins rolling down its track, it carries with a reminder of a slower era, one where the journey mattered just as much as the destination. Perhaps that's why model train enthusiasts never truly vanished. They simply became the keepers of a forgotten tradition, waiting for the next generation to rediscover the wonder that captured America's imagination for nearly a century.